Hello and welcome, I'm Oles Gerjuk and you're watching Head to Head with UATV. 2018 has become a year of drastically increased foreign support for Ukraine. Over the year, the country has been continuously revising its foreign policies and goals along with allies in its fight against Russian aggression. To sum up the 2018 achievements and setbacks for Ukraine in the international arena, we welcome Hennadiy Maksak, chairman of the Foreign Policy Council, Ukrainian Prism. Hello and thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for inviting me.
So, I remember we had similar conversation last year, summing up 2017, and we had the whole book from the experts of the Ukrainian Prism, the whole assessment of Ukrainian international policy on our international affairs. So among the recommendations, there was a paragraph about visa harmonization with certain countries, including Canada and the United Kingdom. So has there been anything done to fulfill this?
Well, basically some steps have been done on this issue, but still we're in process of negotiations, both with Great Britain and Canada. But I would mention that what is good, that we had the second report of the European Commission vis-à-vis our visa-free regime with European Union, and basically the estimations may be not that optimistic, but they are still good, and they prove that within European Union we still have good track of visa-free regime, and we still are eligible to continue it, and there is no reasons for maybe just submitting some suspension mechanism as it could be for example for other countries. So basically for those countries we're still on track. Here we have some successes, I would say.
Well, this is a very positive signal because there are some rumors that there are too many Ukrainians that are migrating to Europe, or some myths like that. So this is very, very positive feedback from Europe.
I would say compared to other countries, I mean Georgia and Moldova, we have some figures which could raise some concern, but they're not that serious, that grave, that there should be a kind of discussion about suspension or something like that.
This is good. Well, among the other recommendations of Ukrainian Prism was to focus on public diplomacy. And this is a very important issue. We know why, because we had lots of things going on throughout the whole year and still some things continuing in this year. Ongoing war in the east of Ukraine, our political prisoners being held in Russia illegally, the 24 captured Ukrainian sailors / prisoners of war. We had a lot of business and security forums, discussions with China, for example, on establishment of the free trade area. So how would you assess the work of Ukrainian diplomacy in every issue separately?
If to try to assess separately, we could refer to the assessment we had presented today. It was an expert survey. We have interviewed 120 experts who deal with foreign policy and international relations.
But these are Ukrainian experts?
Ukrainian experts, okay. Right. And they assessed, in average, there are equal numbers for 4 score and for 3 score. So basically, compared to previous year, the score 4 is bigger because that time it was more like 3 mark for foreign policy. So at large, there is a good progress on performance of foreign policy. But when it comes to some lines, to some directions, we could find some good progress and maybe some setbacks. You mentioned public diplomacy. I think there is a good track on that. I only mentioned two instruments which are quite fresh, and they are of progress, I would say. The first one, there is a possibility of MFA to give possibility for experts to go abroad, to finance this possibility for different forums, public speeches and interviews, just to present Ukrainian position.
Okay, so this is about promotion Ukraine.
Promotion, right, in this domain. The second one, which is also with the involvement of my organization, Ukrainian Prism, we deal with creation of a bilateral expert forum, which means that we tried to circle Ukraine with bilateral forums and tried to involve experts in just shaping the agenda of bilateral relations, because there is no secret that with some our neighbors the relations are not that good that we expect.
Yes, and whom do you mean?
Well, when it comes to setbacks of foreign policy, on the first rank we have this year, it is about relations with Hungary.
Yes.
More than half of those interviewed just indicate it's a problem for Ukraine to have this kind of relations, and maybe we should just try to revise or revisit our approach to neighboring countries. And I think this is more likely to be true, because sometimes I think that there is a big influence of a domestic policy on foreign policy. And I think if we try to communicate more, to coordinate our activity, because I think that coordination is one of the big obstacles on the way of performing good foreign policy. And
so we do focus on this regional priorities in our foreign policies now.
We focus, but I wouldn't say that it is a top priority.
Okay.
If we have 4 top priorities, which were indicated by President in August, the first one was fighting Russian aggression. Second one was European integration and Euro-Atlantic. It was one direction. The third one was trying to get investments, foreign direct investments, and trying to conquer more markets for Ukrainian producers. And the fourth one is about protection of Ukrainian citizens. So basically, I think that here we do more or less fine, and when you see the track of European integration, Atlantic integration, it is quite fine. But when it comes to protecting Ukrainian people and citizens, we have some setbacks. It's not always the blame of our diplomats. I think that we should take into account the pressure we have from outside.
If you mentioned neighboring countries, you mentioned this dispute with Hungary over the educational law that was adopted last year, but it had driven lots of controversy and crazy discussions throughout this year also. So what is the latest? I mean, in what stage are the relations of Ukraine and Budapest and Hungary?
I think that this year these relations have reached quite serious low level, I would say, because we had one issue with this educational law, as you mentioned, but another one was with the disseminating of Hungarian passports to Ukrainian citizens, which was the case for the Zakarpattia region. And another case was with a new representative of the Hungarian government for the Zakarpattia region, which was named, like, you know, the very special person to take care about Ukrainian territory. I think these cases just indicate that there is no big understanding between two countries. And in the end of the year, there is a good news that there is understanding, and there was some signs from both sides that we could try to find another breath for approachment. I think we will see new phases of the negotiations right at the beginning of the next year, and I have some modest expectations that there could be a kind of breakthrough, because it is the lowest level ever we had in our relations with Hungary.
This is very important. Thank you very much for this comment. Speaking of trade relations with different countries, how did the priorities shifted within 2018?
I would say that we could trace the changes in the turnover of Ukrainian goods and services, and we will see that European Union is the number one trade partner. But when it comes to partner states, I think maybe this year could be the first where Poland could be the biggest partner apart from Russia, because Russia was, as a single partner, was still big share of our trade. I think it's a good orientation, and more we try to implement our DCFTA, the more benefits we have from this direction. Still, we have some, maybe not setbacks, but I think delays in implementing, and it was indicated in the last Association Council, which was held in Brussels in December. But I think that we are on good track. Still, we need more coordination between governments and parliament. There is a roadmap. It was drafted in the end of last year. We have some good news about its implementation, but still I think there are lessons to be learned.
What is this roadmap on?
How to coordinate or synchronize activity of government with producing draft laws, and with Parliament trying to adopt these draft laws into laws and implement all directives we have within the association agreement.
Also, I remember a year ago you were saying that Ukraine needs a document, some kind of a roadmap for its strategic tasks in the foreign policy with a deadline until 2025. Did it happen this year?
I think we're still in progress, but we don't have this big comprehensive document. We need that. We need that with all these aims set and with resources allocated to different areas. But I would say there is a good news that we have these priorities. I mentioned 4 priorities. We have them mentioned by president, by foreign minister, and I think that these 4 priorities are like, the first step to have this bigger document.
Well, unfortunately, we are running out of time, and I would like to hear the general assessment. How do you think, what are the main achievements of this year, and what are the things that Ukrainian government should focus on the most in the upcoming 2019 year?
I will try to refer to this survey we just conducted. The first and foremost achievement was the ability to still have these sanctions we have, like international regime against Russia. We have international partners, we have Ukrainian sanctions, and we still are united on this issue. The second one was granting Donbas to Ukraine. It was indicated by our partners and experts in foreign policy that it is a good achievement, although we could argue whether it is domestic policy or foreign policy, or maybe it's outside the domestic policy because it's about churches, but still it was indicated. The third and very important, it was about granting lethal weapons to Ukraine by United States. And the fourth, good implementation of association agreements.
Well, thank you so much for these clear answers, and thank you for being a guest today in our studio.
A pleasure.
That was Hennadiy Maksak, chairman of the Foreign Policy Council Ukrainian Prism. Thank you for watching Head to Head, and stay tuned for more with UATV.